Hey, what's going on, everyone? Today we have the Set 17 opener guide. I know a lot of people have been asking about this because it's a new set. Lots of stuff is going on. What's going to be the most efficient way to win the game at the start? So we're going to cover all the broken openers right now, learn how to play from a win streak, how to know when to win streak, what comps to play, unit priorities in stage 1 so you know what to hold at the start and know what to sell for interest, items, how to lose streak, and then cover some generic openers and then AD and AP openers as well. Let's get right into it. Let's start off with the broken opener. So normally in TFT, there's some vertical comps that you can just hard force. Right now, you can't really just hard force unless you meet some conditions. Patch 17.1b is super conditional, and we're going to cover those right now. So emblems are super important. If you see an emblem augment, just take it. It's going to be good. Lots of things to go, but the best ones are going to be Space Groove Riven. Shepherd Victor can use it. Honestly, a lot of comps can use it. Comps are either going like pretty wide, playing a lot of traits. So if you ever get the thing that's like get 3 different emblems or get 2 different emblems, gonna be good because you could always make use of it. And then if you give the stuff that gives you either a spatula or a pan, you could use those to make very specific emblems as well. And we will cover that in the augment section later. But right now, if you see an emblem augment, just take it. It's on average going to be very nice to have. If you have uplink drone for Shepherd Victor, just like hard force it. Very easy to do. Super powerful. And then if you have an 8+ win streak, Vex Fast 9 is going to be the best option. 2 tanky Samira is very good. Anima cash out. Going into Mecha is really nice because you get the Anima item. And then after that, we have some artifacts. Artifacts also great on Mecha and also good on reroll comps such as Primordian. So next up, we have a reroll check. If you get a Stargazer opener, you could do either Twist of Fate reroll or Stargazer Zaya. No Scout, no Pivot, Twist of Fate reroll, or Cho Ezreal. Early learnings, same thing. And then if you get a Fizz or a Kaisa from an orb drop, just go Kaisa Fizz reroll. Very simple. Next up we have is what happens if you need to lose streak. Personally, I hate lose streaking right now, but sometimes you're going to get it. But pretty much always try to play Time Breakers, Anima, or Primordians if offered, and also consider 3-cost reroll lines like Kaisa Fizz or Shepherd Victor. Overall though, this patch is very simple in terms of openers. You just need to hit a condition and run with it. Like, don't use your brain too much. I promise you it'll be easier that way. Like, sometimes it's not going to be like that, but this patch it is. But you have to take advantage of it. Sometimes people like to outthink themselves, and that costs them some games. But I know we talked about a few of the augments already. Let's go into each and every one of the important ones to know about. So first one we're going to cover is Expedition. So pretty much with Expedition, at the start of every round, you lose the champion on the rightmost bench slot, and after losing 33 gold worth of champions, you gain a powerful reward. This is one of the best augments in the game right now, and you also gain a 3-cost champion right now. So the way to play this is full open while feeding 3 gold worth of units to the hex each turn. Aim to cash out by stage 4-1, so that's 11 rounds. 3 times 11, 33. Look to play stuff like Mecha with Radiant Gargoyle Stoneplate and things like that. And if you can pair an Anima cash out with this augment as well, you just automatically win the game. So if you ever see Expedition, just take this. Prismatic Ticket, great for reroll. Twisted Fate reroll, probably one of my favorites. Anything that needs like a lot of copies or multiple 3 stars is going to be great with Prismatic Ticket. If you just care about like 2 units, probably not the best augment. But if you can hit like 3 or even 4 things 3-star, then Prismatic Ticket going to be the best one. Patience is a virtue. Great for reroll, full open. Look to play a 3-cost reroll line. Kaisa Fizz, Shepherd Victor with Uplink Drone are going to be ideal. Branching out, Spreading Roots, Legion of Threes, Trait Trees. Pretty much all the emblem giving augments. Just take these. They're pretty good. You know, you're not going to get exactly what you want. Are you going to get Space Groove every time? No. But more often than not, you're going to find something that's takeable and playable, and it helps you play around in the early game, because it gives you a lot of immediate power. Not a lot, but a little bit. Pretty much, if you want to be super precise about the rules, if we're looking at future patches, you generally only take these if you do not have a good direction in your game. So pretty much avoid them if you already have a solid direction, such as having like Twisted Fate 2-star with Jax in a good Stargazer constellation. Like, just play Stargazer, right? Don't take one of these random nonsense augments. Like, obviously you prefer some reroll or something like that, but maybe just getting an item is going to be better than risking one of these random things. But in this specific patch, it's pretty strong, so these situations are going to happen less often than it will in the future. Next up we have is the Forges artifact items, like just data check. Hard force any interaction that averages 4.0 or better. You can sort by artifacts here, but you could also use the Explorer tool. And here you could type in whichever artifact item that you get offered. Like, let's say you get Rapid Fire Cannon. Who's good with that? Well, you type that in, you click here, you click there, and you'll see that stuff like Belveth, Master Yi, going to be the more popular options, but Yi, not that great right now. It's not a Yi meta. So if you get this, you're probably just going to try to hard force Bel'Veth and do your best with that. So pretty much these augments are pretty good. You just need to do some checking. And then worth the wait, pretty much all of these lead to a consistent game if you get worth the wait 1, which is the gold version. This one gives you a 1 cost unit every single turn. And pretty much the best one's going to be Veigar, super stable early game, and he opens up playing for Veigar 4 in the Veigar Meeple composition. And then Teemo is going to be very good and strong tempo-wise, leads very easily into Vex Fast 9. And then Twisted Fate 3, great money printer. Ezreal Cho'Gath can also scale infinitely, but you just need to make sure you can slam a usable item on them. And then anything B or C tier, you can top 4 with it. It's not going to be ideal, but they do something, right? It gives you some tempo early game, but maybe you don't play them on your final board. And then lastly, the C and F tier, you probably don't play these. You're going to be pretty sad if you do. But like 3, 6 good options, 6 decent ones, and then 2 bad ones. Like I like those odds. I like those odds. I'm not a betting person. Just kidding. I kind of am. But this is essentially what you're doing when you're taking worth the wait. You're getting just really good value because you really just don't want Caitlyn. Worth the wait 2, also pretty solid. Kind of the same little rule set here or distribution. I don't think it's as good as some of the other prismatics though. So I think worth the wait 1 is better than worth the wait 2 in terms of relative power, but it's still pretty good. If you get Gwen, you're very likely to just giga win streak and remain strong throughout the entire game, as long as you play 2 rogue. Jax 3, he's essentially a 2-star 4-cost tank, and tanks are so hard to get in this day and age. They don't make tanks like they used to, you know? So just getting that from your augment, just like a main tank that you don't have to roll for in a tank-hungry meta, or tank-starved meta, I should say, it's going to make him one of the best options here. Next, we have is Bel'Veth. Bel'Veth's good for Primordian reroll, and that also immediately just gives you so much direction in your game. Meepsy, Mord, pretty good 3-trait flex units, so you could play them in a lot of different comps. And then one other thing to note is that Pyke is S tier if you have Target Lock Optics as your Psionic item. If we do some checking here, like let's type in Pyke, go to items, and then Target Lock 3.77, come on. You're going to be having a very free game, but obviously you don't know that before you take the augment, right? But it's just something to keep in mind. Like he's okay if you don't have it, but he's S tier if you do. But yeah, the other stuff, pretty mediocre, but yeah, you just don't want Jinx. Jinx is pretty bad. But let's move on into the next augment, which is Seraphim Staff. Still solid option here. You just play any AP lines, make 2 Archangels if possible, so you get the first one, you make the second one. It's just pretty good value there. A lot of the different item augments are pretty good right now. Like Solo Plate is absolutely amazing right now. It's very broken, and it's the best in slot on the Mecha comp. Earth and Earth's Gambit promise to let you guys know about this, but yeah, emblems right now are just very strong, and they just should be prioritized in any comp, like literally any comp. If you're forced to pick one of them, like Space Groove gonna be the best, and then Dark Star right after that. If only there was a way to check, right? Go to items and then go to, what is it, emblems, and then you see here, yeah, it's Space Groove, no surprise, right? But there are a lot of different things to build. Dark Star pretty good too. But a lot of different things work. You need to pay attention to both like play rate and average placement. Obviously, I'm not going to list every single augment out here or every single emblem, but pretty much all of them are good. Like obviously there's some duds down here, but I'd say like 75% of them are pretty nice to build, maybe higher. So both these are pretty solid, especially if you're going deep into a trait. Next up we have is Anima Commander. So you want to full open with this. What Anima Commander does is it just gives you the animas and also gives you some HP, but pretty much you cannot win a fight when you have this augment. So if you look around, and I've noticed in this set for some reason so far, a lot of people are open forting. It's going to be hard to take this augment if you see a lot of people open forting. And pretty much if you lose your lose streak, you're in a pretty bad spot. So even though you get the extra HP, you have to be sure that you're the only guy. You have to be sure that you're the only person kind of doing this. Calculated Loss, very good augment. Is one of my favorites, to be honest. I feel like they need to nerf this because it just makes your game plan so easy. So you take it, whenever you lose, you get rerolls and some gold, and you pretty much just open fort. Like you don't have to open fort. Like if you got Fizz from a orb in stage 1, then yeah, keep it. But you could pretty much just play any reroll comp and stabilize so hard. It just gives so much value. And the best part is that you're not tied down to any reroll. So if you see 2 players going for Kaisa Fizz, you could go for Victor. If you see someone going for that, you could go for something else instead. Like there are tons of reroll comps. These are just the 2 popular ones right now. But you just sit, wait, bide your time, lose streak in stage 2, and then stabilize super hard either stage 3-2 or 3-5, depending if you're doing 2 cost or 3 cost reroll. and you just have infinite rerolls to stabilize with. You pretty much always hit. 2 tanky, good for 2 tanky Samira, no scout, no pivot. Play TF or Ezreal Cho'Gath reroll. Pretty much any reroll comp is good if you have the units at the start. If you don't have the unit at the start, I don't recommend taking this augment because this one gives you stats for every turn your units are on your board. So if you don't have them at the start, you're just missing out on value. Early learnings, play any 1-cost reroll comp, ideally TF, but Ezreal and Cho'Gath work pretty decently also. Your cap is pretty high if you reroll 1-cost units with this augment. Pretty much you just get a bunch of stats and 1-cost units gain double. And then if you don't have any direction at all, augments like expected unexpectedness, delayed start. Oh wait, I actually think they removed these two. I'll delete these. But pretty much anything that gives you units, they're going to be good to take if you have no direction at all and if you have good items to slam. But let's go on into how to find and decide an opener. So the highest priority right now when choosing an opener is solid direction, because I wouldn't say the game is super one-dimensional, but it's just very conditional right now. You just can't play like most of the comps out there if you don't have the right start for them or right opener. That's why we're making the opener guide. But pretty much if you see a direction, take it and commit. Obviously scout around a bit, check if you're being giga contested, but just be committed. Committal, you know? Don't kind of dip your toes everywhere. You need to focus in and lock in a comp early. In the future, this might change as they buff and nerf some stuff, but right now, like you gotta commit. It's like you say you're gonna do something, just do it right away. Don't procrastinate it, you know? But we're gonna cover win streaking and lose streaking, and then after that cover flex, AD, and AP openers. But pretty much when you win streak, you wanna try to look at going into a fast 9 comp. It's the highest cap in the game as always. But worst case scenario, when you're win streaking, like level 8's also much easier to play. But pretty much when you are win streaking, this is the best start you can get, and it means it gives you a lot of options, you know? But the big decision point in the mid game after you win streak is just deciding whether you want to go level 8, is deciding whether you want to roll on level 8, which means you're probably playing for a top 4, or go on level 9 and trying to play for a win out. But pretty much when you are win streaking, you want to be slamming items, you want to be playing aggressively, and you have to be a little bit forgiving about your best in slot items. Like you're not going to get them when you're win streaking because you get random components on the PvE rounds instead of anvils, so you pretty much just can't be picky. But pretty much the checklist for when to consider doing a win streak opener is, do you have a strong item slam on a 2-star unit? A lot of people just think like, oh, I have a random 2-star and I have a good item for like my 1-star. Is that good? Probably not, unless they're a 3-cost 1-star. But if it's a 1-cost 1-star, like let's say you have a good Talon item, he's 1-star, and then you have like a 2-star Nasus or something like that. No, that's not great, you know, because your item's going on your weaker unit. Another thing to consider is like you need upgrades, ideally more than one. Item or combat augment is going to be great. Item is preferred. And then lastly, you need to scout the lobby pretty much every single game, no matter what you're doing. If you're win streaking, lose streaking, hard forcing this, hard forcing that, whatever you need to do, every game you probably should scout at least once on the stage 2-1 augment round just to see what people are picking, because you need to be sure that other people didn't like randomly get 2-star 2-costs, you know? It happens pretty often. So unless you can beat that, don't try to like super play into the win streak. But these are the things that high elo players consider before committing to this. But some comps to play when you are win streaking: Vex Fast 9, Shepherd Victor, like obviously all the meta comps like Space Groove Riven, Xayah, Corki Riven, Primordial Reroll, Jhin Fast 9, Vanguard Karma LeBlanc. You could pretty much play anything, but these are going to be some of the ones that give you a bit more oomph to your game. But now let's go into the most important section of this video. It's going to be the unit priorities. So a lot of people, they don't know what to hold in stage 1, and then they miss out on interest because they held the wrong units, or they're like skipping units in their shop, and I'm like, what are you doing when I'm watching that, you know? So for 1-cost units, Teemo and Talon are the stars of the show right now. You 5 win streak with them so often, and yeah, the reason why is because Teemo, 3 Shepherd, really good. Talon, you just need 2 Rogue, and melee units are just really good in stage 2. So that's why they're up there. Vanguards are the best frontline right now. So Nasus and Leona are pretty much premier frontline tanks in stage 2. Briar's decent because she offers 2 Rogue for Talon. And then Twisted Fate opens up Twisted Fate reroll and is generally just a pretty solid early game unit. B tier units are still okay, but like it's going to be harder to win streak. Like you obviously still 2-star them if you can. And then lastly, C tier units, they're mainly supportive. Like don't itemize them, but they still can be useful. One note, like I know Ezreal's in the C tier, he's a time breaker, and time breakers are really good, but not in win streak. This unit priority covers win streaking. But if you're lose streaking, like Ezreal's still pretty good. Like you still can't play Ezreal in win streak, like he does give XP with time breakers, but You'd rather have a trait that gives power to your board unless you're like super duper duper far ahead for some reason. But next one up we have are the 2-cost units. So Gwen, Belveth, I think these are the best 2 hex carries right now, making them pretty much more consistent than regular melee carries. And then Jax is just the tankiest 2-cost in the game. That's why they are in the S tier. In the A tier, Mordekaiser and Meepsy, pretty solid 3 traders. They open up a lot of different possibilities so you can mix and match whatever's in your shop. I just realized this is pretty similar to the Worth the Wait tier list. And then Milio's pretty solid and also obviously works well with the Time Weavers. Pike can scam some backlines pretty nicely, which makes him a pretty good choice in stage 2. A lot of people just are not prepared for it. And then Zoe and Gragas are pretty conditional right now. Pretty much if you have like a really good Arbiter, then you can go for it, but or like a really good Psionic item, that's when you would choose like Gragas and Arbiter for Zoe. And then lastly, just like ignore Jinx. She doesn't show up in your shop if you get her. Just consider it like a dead shop. Unless you're playing specifically Anima for lose streaking, but like for win streaking, Jinx is pretty useless. 3-cost units, these generally you only get from orbs because they don't show up in your shop at levels 1 through 3. So one thing to consider whenever these do pop up from the orbs is you need to decide immediately whether you can sell them or not, because they obviously make reaching the 10 gold threshold very easy. But Alawi and Victor, I'd say, are the 2 best options right now. So Alawi's got great traits, fits in a bunch of good comps. Victor, very solid, obviously, because he's Victor. He's in like one of the best comps in the game right now, S tier comp. And then Kaisa and Fizz are pretty good, but you need an item to go with them. If you have an item for them, then they're really good. They're S tier. But if you don't, they're not as good generic holds. B tier units are okay. They're solid. Like if you have traits for them, you can make them work, but they're not like that high in priority. So pretty much like sell them for pairs instead in most cases, unless they fit exactly what you want. Like if you're looking to go into a 3 trait and you get one of the 3-cost units, like obviously keep them. Like if you're going for Stargazers and you get a Stargazer, like keep it. But apart from that, they're not too important to your game plan. And then like, yeah, Aurora and Diana, seen better days. Pretty much just ignore them from your shop right now if you are going for a win streak. But that's pretty much how you win streak. Next up, let's cover lose streaking. So lose streaking, you want to get this checklist nice and ready. So if you have no direction or a weak direction, no upgrades, an econ augment, and scouting of the lobby to make sure not everyone's also lose streaking, then you can go for it. Right now in this current patch though, like you pretty much have to play one of the econ traits when lose streaking. If not, you probably will bot 4 unless you have like something absolutely bonkers busted later. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm not a big fan of lose streak right now unless you meet like pretty much all of these conditions. So that means having like Anima, Time Breakers, things like that. Unless you have one of those, like I just hate doing this, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But pretty much right now, like Anima's just the best trait to lose streak with because it's overtuned. You get extra items and it's one of the easiest and least conditional ways to win the game. At the moment, like maintaining your loss streak into stage 3-1 is more important than playing an econ trait on stage 2. This works because the way Anima works is the stacks that are gained are based on the losses of your current loss streak, not how many losses you had while playing the trait. So if you're playing for a 10 loss streak, it's often better to sell all your units on 2-6 if you're afraid of winning against an opponent, and then just get the Anima back later. So pretty much even when playing a very weak econ trait board, you still have to scout very heavily if you're planning on playing Anima in stage 3, because keeping your loss streak is so important, and you can pretty much lose the game if you accidentally win a round. Stuff to play for when you are playing Anima is stuff like Mecha. If you get an Anima item for Mecha, it's just like Giga OP. And then you also have Time Breakers. And then the second best trade augment is going to be Time Breakers. It just gives you reroll, so you could just easily stabilize on stage 3-5 into Kaisa Fizz or Shepherd Victor, or any of the other reroll comps. Primordian is the third econ trait. It's the worst one in terms of gold value, but it's not horrible. It can give you a lot of units, which can be used for tempo later on, and it could kind of set you up into stage 3. Keep in mind, if you are trying to lose streak and you accidentally win, don't try to start a new lose streak. Like, it's over, you know? You need to change your strategy a bit, but pretty much you want to keep playing econ traits, such as Time Weavers, but set up your board so that you can try to finish off units and lose with as little health loss as possible. So put all your units to one side and pretty much hope for the best and have them all focus onto one target, like whoever's on this square. But pretty much if you don't get one of these insane econ traits, you pretty much need a different condition, like one of the broken openers conditions that we talked about above. You need one of these if you want a top 4 in this day and age with the state lose streaking is in right now. But pretty much some comps to play or to consider is Twisted Fate reroll, Rogue reroll, that's Kaisa Fizz, Shepherd Victor, and Misfortune reroll, or pretty much any reroll variant that you have copies of to spike in stage 3 with. But Pretty much lose streaking, there's like a little comeback mechanic that they change in this set. So normally it was carousel, but nowadays they don't really explain this, but you know when you get loot from the neutral rounds at end of stage 2, 3, and 4, if you're last place in the game, you get component anvils. So that means you get to choose more specific items than people who are win streaking. Win streakers, they get random item component, and it's going to be harder to get best in slot that way, right? So pretty much like greed your items if you are lose streaking, because you will pretty much get to hand pick your items as you get later and later into the game. But now let's go into generic openers. We're going to cover 2 flex boards and then AD and AP. But first thing we have is the Stargazer opener, where you can itemize either Twisted Fate or Caitlyn. Twisted Fate uses the AP items really well. Caitlyn does the auto attack builds really well. And pretty much you can combine it with Aatrox for Nova and then Bastion with Jax. And you have a lot of different options here. You could easily go into Twisted Fate reroll if you have enough natural copies of Stargazers and are uncontested. But you could also play something like Xayah. And if you win, Vex Fast 9. Or always just go into Victor. You could just build Victor items on your Twisted Fate. Next one up we have is 2 rogues plus frontline. This one you can itemize either Gwen or Talon. I prefer Gwen, but if you have AD you can use Talon. And pretty much this is just 2 Rogue, 2 Space Groove, 2 Vanguard, Nasus, Leona with that combo there. Just very solid tank. We talked about Vanguards before, just super good in the early game. And pretty much like, yeah, AD items on Talon, AP on Gwen, tanks on either Leona or Nasus, whoever you have 2-starred. Comps to play is Vex Fast 9, Space Groove Riven, Vanguard Karma LeBlanc, Shepherd Victor, and Kaisa Fizz. And then lastly we have is Timebreaker, Fate Weaver. This is a little bit of a weaker opener, but you have the Timebreakers in to kind of get your econ up. And then here we have Caitlyn, AD items, Milio, AP items, and then Pantheon tank items, and then Gragas just chilling as Gragas. I mean, if you 2-star Gragas, like put items on him, obviously, but mainly going to be put on Pantheon here. But this is a good setup to go into 3-cost reroll because you're playing the Timebreakers. So Kaisa, Victor, Twisted Fate reroll, all solid options here. Next up, we have the AD opener. So AD, I think it's like slightly worse than AP right now. If we think of the top comps, they're mostly AP. It's like Vex, Victor, things like that. But AD still has its space, you know, like Xayah's still an option, things like that. But Gnar Meeple, pretty solid start. This is paired up with Meepsy and Poppy for Meeples, and then you just add in a sniper. It could be Ezreal. Could be anyone. Pretty solid user of Gwynsu, so if you can win streak, you could do Fast 9. It is a bit risky, but you could also go into Xayah, as we talked about. Next comp up we have is the Primordian start. I love this one personally because like I like Primordian reroll. Sue me, you know? But it's also a pretty solid win streaking opener where you have Bel'Veth holding the attack speed items and then Akali holding the crit AD items. And if you get Nova Emblem, this is a solid comp to go into. You could do like Nova Marauders. But you really need to win streak with this. It's a bit risky. Like you don't have good level 8 options, so you want to go into level 9 if you play this, or play the reroll. So you could either do the rerolls or just go Jhin Fast 9. Next up we have is Timebreaker Snipers. This one's Cho'Gath Pantheon in the front line for 2 brawlers, and then Gnar Ezreal as the snipers in the back line. It gives the Timebreakers, but you have to keep in mind like lose streak AD is not recommended. But Ezreal and Gnar have pretty good single target damage and will get a solid amount of kills, honestly. But if you do play Timebreakers, look to play a 3-cost reroll. It could be Kaisa Fizz, Samira Ezreal, or just go into Stargazer Xayah at level 8. It can be considered, but it's going to depend on whether you're losing a lot. If you're winning, you could play Stargazer, 4-cost. If not, if you're losing, play some reroll. By the way, you can access this guide on the website, bunnymuffins.lol/openers, and I also have like pretty much every TFT guide imaginable on this site. Definitely check it out. And also, if you want to do something a little extra, tell your friends about it too. Next one up, we have our generic AP openers. So again, AP is better than AD right now. It's a common fight in TFT, and it pretty much changes every patch. But right now, AP is just better. Shepherd Vanguard going to be a pretty solid start. Nasus, Meepsy, Mordekaiser frontline, Teemo, Lissandra backline. We talked about how Teemo is one of the best item holders in the game right now. But pretty much any 2 Vanguards and 3 Shepherds with Teemo work with this. It doesn't have to be these specific units. By the way, for all the comps that I laid out, like you're not going to get these comps every game, you know? You're going to have to make some variations because that's how TFT works. But I'm trying to give you ideas of what's mandatory, what's not. What units can fit with these units, what units don't fit. Sometimes you might end up just playing like, I don't know, like this 4 set, and then you're level 5. You just play a random 2-star with this. It doesn't have to be specific to anyone, you know? Like a lot of times your comps are going to be very variable, especially in the early game. But this one's very solid because Teemo's just great AP item holder. He could do Rageblade also. And you could go into either like a LeBlanc comp, Shepherd comp, Vex, or Victor. Next up, we have is Zoe Leona. So this one's going to be an Arb build, Arbiter, Conduit, Vanguard, and Space Groove. And this can go in one of two directions. You could either get an Arbiter that is good for LeBlanc and go into LeBlanc, or if you're not playing them, you can consider taking an Econ Arbiter instead and just use this to Econ with. That's another option that you have to consider when playing this. Otherwise, look for Arbiters that get max HP on 50 mana spent. That one's really good. It makes Leona huge. Or anything that gives you copies of Leona to cheat out like a Leona 3. If you get a lot of copies of Teemo or Leona whenever you're playing this with a scaling Arbiter, consider Leona Teemo reroll. I'm not going to say it's the best comp. I have it pretty low in the tier list right now, but if you get a lot of free copies, you get a lot of free copies. And then last up we have is 2 Replicator. This one's going to be Veigar Lysandra paired up with Aatrox and Poppy. You could also play this with Brawlers if you play Pantheon, and then play Time Weavers if you want to see if you can lose streak, just testing the waters out a little bit. But pretty much Veigar is very good item holder in early game. You can carry him if you're going deep into meeples. And then with this base here at level 5, you just add in another meeple and call it a day there. But yeah, standard mage items on Veigar, nothing too crazy there. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot, I skipped over the item section for some reason. And whenever you are playing the game, you have to consider which items to slam and why. So the way this item tier list is set up is that it builds either items that are really good in the early game or help you smoothly get into the late game with items that are still good there too. So that's why you see items like Protector's Vow and Crown Guard here. In case you didn't know, these are like the 2 best items on Nunu. So if we go to the Explorer tool, we go type in Nunu, and then you go to items. Protector's Vow and mana items are just going to be insanely OP on him. And tanks are so funny in this set. They're pretty much the weakest tanks I've ever been because there's so few options for them. So getting the instant value items instead of making the super tank items, the giga tanks, is going to be much more worthwhile. So Protector's Vow, Crown Guard, those are the 2 that fit the bill because they give you shielding based on percent max health. And shielding obviously isn't great for giga tanks, right? Because a giga tank wants to use and keep all his stats and pretty much just regen the whole fight. But that's not how TFT works right now. Just getting the guaranteed shield value from Crown Guard and Protector's Vow is well worth it compared to just being a super duper giga tank. So that's kind of the differences there. After that, you want to make sure anti-heal is accessible early. So Sunfire Cape or Morello, very solid options. It's pretty decent to have in the early game, and obviously you need it eventually anyway. So just building it early sometimes can be good. Rabadon's good in AP meta, same with Void Staff. A lot of the generic stat items are pretty good because a lot of comps they play with Novas. So you don't need items like Infinity Edge and Jeweled Gauntlet sometimes. That's why those items are a bit lower in the tier list right now. Apart from that, it's really going to depend on what comp you're angling. If you're going mecha, Stoneplate's going to be good. You need that item for your mecha. Rageblade, mandatory in Vex comps and LeBlanc comps. But some of these other items, they're just generic value. But it's really going to depend on what you're trying to play. And one thing to note, I know Nashor's is a really good item in AP right now. The thing is, you don't want to build it first. So that's why it's in the C tier right now. I know some people are going to point that out. They're going to look at some tier lists or look at the stats on items generically and be like, oh, Nashor's is the best item ever. And yes, it is very good. I have it in a lot of my team comps on the tier list. And the one thing though is that it's not good early game because you need Critical Strike to get its effect. Attacks gain 2 bonus mana, increase to 4 if they critically strike. So if you don't have IE or Jeweled Gauntlet, Nashor's not going to be that good. And in the early game, stage 2, which is what this guide focuses on, you can't get 2 item combos. You don't have enough items to do that in most of your games. So try to build something else. It's going to help you save more HP if you build something else. So just keep that in mind when you use this tier list. Obviously your own game's going to have very specific scenarios, or maybe you actually absolutely have nothing else to build and you have to build Nashor's. Just build it if you need to, But if you can, try to build other things. If you have the belt, getting a Sunfire Cape going to be much more valuable. If you have a bow, maybe something like a Rage Blade's going to be a bit better, So just keep that in mind when you use this tier list. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions on that or pretty much anything in the guide down in the comments below. Again, you can access this guide on bunnymuffins.lol. I'll be updating this throughout the entirety of the set, every single patch. And all these little links you see, they take you right to the tier list, which is pretty cool. But hopefully we learned a little bit about the openers. Obviously the broken openers are going to be what you're trying to get every single game. The augment ones, come on. I played a couple of these. It's not even a game, You just auto win or auto get top 4. Uplink drone, whoever gets Victor opener that game, yeah, they're going to do really well. It's pretty much free if you really think about it. But that's kind of how the patch is right now. It's very conditional, so just keep that in mind. Normally it's not, so in the future guides, hopefully we'll be saying something else. But that's kind of going to be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.